Welcome to MarcusG.tv. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is farmed salmon. So, the quick basics are rundown of farmed salmon. So, if you eat salmon, you want to eat wild salmon. Farmed salmon has a lot of environmental issues. It's just the way the salmon are raised. They're raised in open pens out in the ocean. When you put that many salmon together in a pen, you're going to have issues. You're going to have disease. You're going to have things that are caused from cramming things into a pen. But now a lot of salmon farmers are saying, oh, we do low density. So low density means 1 fish per bathtub as opposed to 2 fish per bathtub. Big difference, right? Imagine these massive nets and pens sitting out there with 1 fish per bathtub. That's what they call low density. So when a place says, oh, we have low density farming and this and that, they're still jam-packed. Okay, so it's like an oxymoron, low density, okay? It's less density, but it's really not low density. A lot of these salmon farms are put in the migratory path of wild salmon, okay? So with the disease that happens in the salmon farms quickly spreads out into the wild. And these small baby fry that come out of the streams that have just spawned or just hatched, that swim by these farms get attacked with disease, especially sea lice. And then all these fish flus. So these small fry cannot withstand that at the point in their life, and most of them will end up perishing, which now means that farm salmon is actually killing the wild salmon. Okay, that's how this goes. A lot of salmon farms, when you go on their websites, oh, you saved the wild salmon today because you ate farm salmon. That's so not the case, people. Not the case whatsoever. Next issue here is that these salmon farms have to do antibiotics. And if you go into their websites, whether it's Lac du Hart or True North Salmon, I'm going to single out True North Salmon today. True North Salmon is a subsidiary of Cook Aquaculture, massive salmon farms on the East Coast here in New York. So all these salmon farms are like, oh, well, we're so pristine and we don't feed our fish antibiotics. They're very careful there in their wording. They don't feed their fish antibiotics. They still administer antibiotics because you have disease. It's impossible. Go online and look up Lac du Hart Sustainable Salmon Scams or Lac du Hart Salmon Exposed. You'll see people that sit there and record them killing millions of fish because there's outbreaks of fish. True North Salmon, if you go on their website, they say they don't feed the salmon antibiotics, but however, they do administer antibiotics if it's needed. And they say if it's needed. Let's say how often it's needed, but things happen, people. This is the reality of it. So the biggest problem with the whole farm salmon industry is where they grab their food from, their fish pellets, how it's sourced. So you can grab, if you're in Norway, you go down to the Baltic Sea and you dredge the ocean there, and your Baltic Sea is very polluted, by the way. You grab and dredge all these secondary bycatch products and secondary catches of fish, and you make fish pellets out of it. Same thing wherever you are. They go into these other countries and they just basically decimate all these other species of fish to feed salmon. To put this in perspective, imagine if you were raising cattle and you were raising 3 times the amount of chickens to grind up into pellets to feed 1 pound of cattle. 3-to-1 ratio conversion. So again, let me explain this. If you're a cattle farmer and you're going to have to rely upon another farmer raising 3 pounds of chickens to grind up into pellets to make 1 pound of beef, that's the industry, folks. That's why the farmed salmon industry is so unsustainable. I don't care. You look at all these websites. Oh, we're sustainable this, clean this, sustainable this. Our feed is designed to be that. It's all BS, people. There's one salmon farm in Chile that does genetically modified fungus, so they don't have to go out into the wild to get salmon, or they can not do as much feed. They don't have to do as much other wild fish feed. They can cut all that down by doing genetically modified fungus. And that's Verlasso salmon. And so they get these ratings like, oh, we're sustainable because we're not robbing the earth and the oceans of all this other protein. But yet they're in a laboratory doing genetically modified fungus to feed their fish. But they're not telling you that. They're just telling you the good part of the story. I always equate. These companies could put vitamin C in cigarettes, and that's what they would sell you cigarettes on, based upon vitamin C. Oh, get your vitamin C and just smoke and get cancer anyway on the side, but you're getting your vitamin C. That's what it's like, people. It's a whole facade. So, True North Salmon. Rick Moon, who is one of the most celebrated seafood chefs out there. Rick Moon is a celebrated seafood chef and an early champion of sustainable fishing practices. Rick Moon, I always looked up to him when I was a younger chef because he was into the sustainability. Well, now, I feel that he sold himself to True North Farmed Salmon. He's actually one of their endorsing chefs, and he's out there promoting True North like it's something like great. Now, if you go to True North Salmon's site, now here's the kicker. Here is the real kicker. I've called them several times and they have not called me back. If you go to their site about contaminants and PCBs and heavy metals in fish, they do this beautiful graph, right, of how eggs have so many PCBs, how chickens have so many PCBs, and beef and dairy. And at the way top and a little small spread fill out is East Coast salmon, okay? And they're saying that East Coast salmon has the least amount of PCBs. And I'm saying that's only part of the story. I've called them and I've specifically asked. It looks like the salmon that you're referencing is true wild salmon in the Atlantic Ocean, which almost barely exists nowadays, which has a totally different diet than they're feeding the fish that are in the fish pens and the fish farms. What I feel True North is doing, based upon my research that I've done, because you can go right now and Google PCB contests in wild and farmed Atlantic salmon, and you'll see them off the charts from eggs and dairy. They far surpass eggs, dairy, and beef. They're very, very highly concentrated with PCBs, dioxins. What I feel True North is doing, and I told them this when I called them, I said, I feel that you're grabbing from the true wild stock that's in the ocean that doesn't eat what you're feeding your fish. Please call me back, and I've not gotten a call back, like I said. So I believe True North is not listing farmed Atlantic salmon. They're listing wild Atlantic salmon. They just wrote Atlantic salmon. See, folks, Atlantic salmon, there is salmon in the Atlantic Ocean, but there's so little of it that it's not commercially fished. Well, you could say it is in Scotland in one stream or whatever, or very, very, very small pockets. But there's not enough to commercially go around, and it's very, very expensive if it were to. So let's just say we're not serving wild Atlantic salmon because it's too far-fetched. So people can go out, I believe, and catch sport license, get a sport license, catch like one fish here and there in the St. Lawrence or wherever. But you can't go out and commercially fish it and now feed it to restaurants. So True North, in my opinion, I believe that they've gone on and looked at the wild population that does not eat those concentrated fish pellets that have all the protein from other fish. Because what happens is, if you have a worm that eats something, and then you have a bird that eats the worm, and then you have another bird that eats that bird, and then you take that bird, then grind it up into pellets and feed it to a cow, you have basically the chain of food supply where when it was a PCB, mercury, dioxin, whatever it was, a heavy metal in the worm, in the soil, that just keeps carrying through the food chain and it gets to the last end user. And then if the last end user is you as a consumer, top of the food chain, as a human, then you're getting all that bioconcentration through the course of everything that this animal is eaten to get to you. It happens in fish all the time, especially in tuna. Tuna is the most popular. Those sushi grade tunas, those massive, massive big tunas that they catch. That tuna's been living for years upon years and been eating other fish. And those fish have been eating plankton, they've been in the water, they've been eating other fish. And it just bioconcentrates in the fat of the fish. And that's an important thing. The fat of the fish is where these dioxins, PCBs, heavy metals, store in the fish. And we all know that farmed salmon has far much more fat than wild salmon. Wild salmon know how to regulate their body, okay? They know how much to eat, they're eating the right food, and they swim a lot. They'll swim 2,000 miles, they'll go out into the ocean, they'll swim back to where they were hatched from, basically. They're very, very smart fish. Well, now take these pens, keep feeding them food, because the name of the game for a salmon farm, or any type of farm that's beef, pork, chicken, the name of the game is weight. They make their money at the end when they go to weigh their product. So, how do you get your animals, your products, your salmon to weigh more? You don't let them move as much as they should, and you keep feeding them. And you feed them as many cheap byproducts that can make them gain weight as possible is the general rule. Now, True North may have a better food policy, and they may have better ingredients than their sister company or their parent company, Cook Aquaculture, and there's some of their other farms, they might have distinguished themselves and say, okay, we're going to go a little better, a little more elite. Maybe Loch Duhart's doing the same exact thing and saying we're serving non-GMO soy to our salmon. I don't know if that's the case, but maybe they are. Maybe they do have some kind of bragging rights. But I'm here to tell you that the whole industry is screwed. The whole industry is not an industry you want to support. If you want to eat salmon, you get wild Pacific salmon, not farm-raised Pacific salmon, wild Pacific salmon. And, you know, here's my disclaimer on fish. The oceans are all getting polluted as well. So to get truly clean fish, whether it's wild or farmed, is getting closer and closer to being impossible. So if you do partake in salmon, you know, wild salmon, you know, I would say don't overload on it. Don't consume it every day just because something's wild and something's good. Don't think you can just eat it every day and not have any consequences, because there are consequences in our ocean. And Fukushima is the really big consequence right now in the Pacific Ocean. So that is still spewing off radiation and chemicals and all this nasty stuff into the ocean as we speak. And it's like 3, 4, 5 years later. So True North Salmon, Rick Moon, I'm really shocked that you are supporting a salmon that is farmed. I'm really shocked that True North has that little graph up there that says PCBs and lists them as such a small amount, because in my opinion, if you go online, do the research yourself, you'll find that those numbers are not true. But True North, I believe, is relying upon you not to do your research. And Rick Moon is relying on you not to do your research. And he's going to pocket some money, he's going to put some cash in his pocket or some free fish or some free product. He's not doing it because he's a kind person, okay? He's doing it probably because he's getting paid and he's a ambassador to the brand and he gets free product. He gets something. I've done stuff where I've been asked to represent a product, and I've done it for smaller companies. They've given me a ton of free product. That's how it works. You get something. You just don't do it because you're kind. You might do it because you believe in the product. In certain cases, like I did, because I believed in the product, and they said, here's some free product because you came and represented our product at a trade show, or you made a recipe for us or something. It was a product I was already using. So there you go. I believe shame on True North, and I believe shame on Chef Rick Moon. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please hit like, subscribe to my channel, and definitely pass it on.